Okay, the family compound. Let's get right into it. Okay, first thing I want to talk about are the advantages of the family compound. Well, let's talk a little bit about the family compound and what it is. Basically, the family compound is a place where we can all come together and have a centralized place where the family lives, right? As opposed to everybody being scattered out all over the place, paying separate rents, paying separate mortgages. We can come together, create a family compound, and allow this place to be the simple, centralized headquarters for the family as a whole. And I think there are many advantages of doing this. So this first slide gets into those advantages, right? The first thing I have here is the economies of scale for cheaper costs per person. Long story short, that means the more things you buy, the cheaper you get them. And if we are all on the same compound, like I guess the best example would be something like food, right? We know if we buy food in bulk, you get food for cheaper. So if we're all in the same space, all in the same compound, then we can make bulk purchases of things like food. We can also share equipment, right? If we have a family compound, let's say for instance you got 10 family members, you don't need 10 washing machines. You need one washing machine that 10 family members share, things like that. So that's what it basically means when you're talking about economies of scale, right? We're able to lower our costs because we have more people coming together in order to use these things. Okay. Second advantage we have here is the access to previously unavailable benefits. What I'm talking about here is a housekeeper, a chef, a driver, or an executive assistant. Long story short, once the family comes together and we start to share costs, a lot of things that may have been not reasonable for an individual to have now becomes reasonable for the family to have. We can hire housekeepers to do the cleaning around the compound, since we are putting money in the pot and paying for that and sharing those costs. We can hire a chef, we can hire a driver, we can hire an assistant, somebody to help us do a lot of the tasks, the day-to-day tasks, and allows us to free up our time to focus on things that are more worth our time, right? Which is basically what I said here in bullet point 3. It allows us to focus on maximizing our potential in other areas. Maybe you want to get another degree, maybe you want to study something, maybe you want to learn about a different type of business, maybe you want to just catch up on naps. I mean, once we are together and we have the ability to hire help, then this frees us up from doing some of the repetitive tasks that need to be done every day. And since your time is now freed up, it gives you the opportunity to pursue other things you may be interested in. Okay. The last thing in bullet point I have here is that it prevents loneliness. So if we're on the compound surrounded by family all the time, of course everybody's going to have their private spaces and their private time. But when you're on the compound surrounded by people you care about, surrounded by people who care about you, the pandemic of loneliness is something that will be less likely to affect us. I got a few articles here. Article that points that out. What's this? Decline. Basically, I'm not going to go into detail, but here's an article that says how the American dream convinces people that loneliness is normal. Long story short, it's just talking about how so many people are feeling lonely now and disconnected. That is actually something that's happening. It's actually a health risk that has been pointed out. But long story short, like I said, I'm not going to go into that in too much detail. This is just one of the advantages. When we're on the compound, we don't have to face a lot of this loneliness and isolation that a lot of people do face on an everyday basis. Okay. Ready? Advantages continued. Okay. Another bullet point I have here is that the elderly don't have to be thrown into a nursing home. We know that as people get older, arrangements have to be made in order to take care of people. Oftentimes, people are put into nursing homes when they get too old. What we're saying is, if we have a family compound, the family has come together to build this compound, then there's no need for us to do that. We can keep our elderly right at home, surrounded by family. We can also share the cost of taking care of them, hire a home help nurse. These things are easy to do when you have a family working together, sharing costs, and coming together to cooperate with each other. So that's another very important thing. The elderly, if they have done the things that they had to do to help us build, then they should be taken care of in their old age, and they shouldn't have to be thrown into a nursing home just because they've gotten old. When we come together and create our family compound, we can create space for them as well. Okay. The next bullet point is build identity, unity, and stability. Quickly, there's a book that I read by author by the name of Bill Bonner. The name of the book is Family Fortunes. In this book, Bill Bonner talks about a family stronghold. Long story short, a family stronghold is similar to the family compound. It's probably a family compound in practice, but essentially it's a place where family members can go to when they run on hard times. Say people may have had, like, yeah, we have a place of refuge here in this bullet point. We say place of refuge. Somebody may have lost their job, or they may have other struggles. Maybe they're doing remote work. Maybe they working on a project like trying to write a book and they need a quiet space. The family compound can be a place where a person can really have an escape in order to go focus on some things when, either when they run on hard times or when they just need a quiet place to go. So the family compound as a centralized place that allows us to do that, that's also a benefit, right? What else do we have here? Hosting important family events. We need to, so we already know that we will have an annual family meeting. This meeting is kind of like a family reunion / annual meeting where we come together and talk about family, business, family fun, whatever the case may be. It is a place where we can start the tradition of having our important events there, whether it be the annual meeting, whether it be weddings, whether it be holidays. These are things that will allow us to start building tradition, building culture, and these things that start to solidify the glue that brings us together. So a family compound, a family stronghold can play that role. The last bullet point I have here is an ancestral home for future generations. Basically, this is just a place where people, as the next generations are born and grow, and they can point back to this compound or this place as a stabilizing force in their lives and in the life and in the life of the family as a whole, right? I remember growing up when I was younger, we might have bounced around to a few different places. So it's like there's nothing that really, you don't really have roots anywhere. And many people, even if they didn't bounce around from apartment to apartment, they may have moved from one house to another. But there are certain families out here who have homes, castles, whatever the case may be, in their family for hundreds of years. And I think that there is a stabilizing benefit to be had when you can point to something that has been in your family for 100 years or 200 years, so on and so forth. So this is something that this is a role that the family compound can take on eventually. Okay. The absolute last bullet point that I have here is this is not the end all be all, but another marginal benefit that pushes us past others who won't do it. Long story short, the family compound is just one more thing that we're doing in order to improve our situation. It's not the end all be all. It's not going to solve all problems. It's just one of the things that is a part of our overall solution in our march forward. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so next up is a few of the disadvantages, and I only have 2 bullet points here. There may be, if we sit here, and this is basically an introduction. If we sit here and think about it long enough, we may come up with something else. From my thinking about it all, the 2 major disadvantages I can think of is you may have to give up some privacy, and I put here in parentheses, depending on the compound style, which I'll talk about different styles that the compound can take on. I'll talk about that below. So that's that. You may give up some privacy. That's one possible disadvantage. Another disadvantage, if people feel this way, is you will have to give up some personal autonomy, because rules will exist. In order for a bunch of people to live together and get along, there has to be rules. There has to be policies and procedures in order for people to follow, so that everybody can be respected. So that's a little bit different than most people live. If you're living on your own, you pretty much do what you want to do when you want to do it. But when you're living with a bunch of people, there needs to be some type of rules that exist in order to make sure things go smoothly. Okay, next here I want to talk about the possible forms of the family compound. And right here I have in bullet points: large home, a hotel with suites, or land with multiple houses, similar to the Kennedy compound. So basically I have opened up these articles already. Let's see. So the first one is a large home. I'm just showing these as an example. I mean, this one, just as an example of what's out there. Let me make this a little bit larger. As you can see here, this is a home for $1.6 million, but the home has 15 bedrooms and 15 baths, right? So you won't be able to find many of these in a whole bunch of places, but it is possible to just have a large home serve as the family compound, right? This specific home means nothing to me. I just found a home with a lot of rooms to make the point. Okay, but yeah, one form of the family compound could just be a large home, depending on the mix of people and what people are comfortable with doing. It could just be a large home with a lot of bedrooms, etc. Okay. The other thing that I had here was a hotel with suites. So yeah, we can just purchase a hotel, like depending on how many people that we got on the compound, depending on what level of privacy that we want on the compound. Sorry, that's an ambulance going by. depending on what level of privacy that people want, then a small hotel could be an option for the compound, right? As you can see here, like I say, this particular place means nothing to me. It's just I wanted to show a place you can buy a hotel with 49 rooms. It costs 3.3 million, which is a price that's not too bad for a family that's working together in order to buy a compound. Of course, this is not. So yeah, that's the main point. If you got enough people who want to come together, then a small hotel is also an option for the compound. People will have their own rooms, so they will have their own privacy, but there will be shared areas, right? There will be shared amenities for the entire population that's on the compound, but everybody will have their own private space in a hotel. Okay. And lastly, what I got here is land with multiple houses. And basically, I'm using the Kennedy compound as an example. So if I go here to the Kennedy compound, this is essentially what it looks like. So you see a big strip of land that the Kennedys own, and then there are several houses on this land. So long story short, depending on the makeup of the compound, this could be the compound. If people want their own homes, we have our own strip of land. But on that strip of land, there are several houses. Then that is also a option for the compound. So the compound can take whatever form that we decided to take, and depending on the characteristics that we have and want, then we can choose what type of compound that we want. It could either be a large house with many people in it, it could be a hotel with many people in it, but everybody has their own private rooms, or it can be a strip of land with private homes on this strip of land, several private homes. So the compound can take different forms depending on what we're looking for. All right. Okay, next up we have how to purchase the family compound. First thing first, what I have in the first bullet point is everyone lives somewhere already. We're just coming together. So I'll take a look at this other article that I have here. So long story short, one of the things that's becoming popular these days is people co-owning a home. And this is just a random article that I found on the internet, and it says how to buy a house with multiple owners. So the family would have to sit down and work out the details as of the ownership structure of the compound, how we want to make that happen. But my point is, this is something that people are doing more and more these days. One of the things that I can say about when we do it, we will be being proactive in doing it, not because we are struggling, because many of us already own our own homes. We're trying to come together to create a better situation and optimize our situation. Some people are doing this because they can't afford homes. Like that's mostly what this trend relates to in the country right now. People who can't afford homes on their own, they're looking for people to co-own homes with. What I'm saying is we can use the same method that they use, even though that we're not under the same pressure that they are under. Right? We can afford our own homes, but we're coming together not because we're struggling, but we're coming together because we think this is a way to improve things. Okay? But co-owning a home is something that is happening in the country more and more for different reasons, and it's something that we can do. Okay? Yeah, exactly. They say here why co-ownership is on the rise. Co-ownership is rising in popularity as budgets are stretched thin. Like, yeah, these people are doing it because they're struggling and they have no other way to own a home. But we want to do it because it gives us an opportunity to improve our situation and be proactive about doing so. Okay. Okay, what do we say? What I have here, everyone pays rent and mortgage already. So as we're talking about how to purchase the compound, everyone pays rent and mortgage already. So just taking a look at this budget, I use this budget in another example video that I made. This is an example budget, but the principle is the same. Let's say, for instance, you got this family and it's made up of 10 individuals, right? I mean, 8 individuals for in this example, 8 family members. Each one of these family members whose income and expenses are represented in these columns. If you go down to row 17, everybody is paying something for rent and mortgage already. And if we go to this column, you'll see what that total monthly number is when you add up what everybody is paying. And the total is $8,300 in this example. So the point is, people are already spending money on rent and mortgage anyway. So the money to pay the mortgage on the compound, it already exists. We're just talking about bringing it from all of these individual homes and bringing us together so that we can purchase the compound collectively. So the money is there, the ability to do it is there. And even to get the down payment, we can maybe I talked about this here. Oh yeah, so on the next bullet point, I talked about the down payment. Family saves and pays the down payment. In order to raise some money for the down payment, we can either sell our current homes, like the homes that we already live in. We can sell those homes, take the money that we make from those sales, and then use those as the down payment on the compound, and then use the $8,000 a month that we got coming in order to pay the mortgage, right? In that example. And then we also got savings and investments, right? So we've already been on a program of saving and investing. So not only would we have extra capital to pay the down payment when we sell the current homes, but we also have savings and investments that we could liquidate in order to help with the down payment if that had become necessary. Okay. Okay, just a few more bullet points pertaining to purchasing the family compound. Of course, we will split the mortgage payment, right? So everybody, and then we will have to figure out the details of how to do that fairly and how to do that in a way that makes sense. But we will split the mortgage payment, we'll split the down payment, we'll split the mortgage payment, right? Of course, we will also split the household expenses, and we will come up with a methodology to do that fairly. And like I said, in the last bullet point is kind of like what I referenced to above. House rules. House rules are necessary in order to make it work. We have to have rules. We have to have policies and procedures in order to make sure that things stay under control, that everybody is comfortable, everybody is respected. This is very important because we don't want things to fall apart. Okay. And lastly, I have this slide, other family compound considerations. The first bullet point talks about compatibility confirmations. We have to know that people, from a stylistic standpoint, that people are compatible to live together. Do people eat similar diets? Do some people is everybody okay with pets? Do people not want pets? Whatever the case may be. So there are many different things that family members who will be considering the compound need to come together to discuss. One bullet point, the next bullet point that I put, perfection is not necessary, but the willingness to compromise is. The willingness to compromise is necessary. So people don't have to be 100% on the same page in order to make things work, but we can come together and compromise. Sometimes I get what I want. Sometimes you get what you want, etc., etc. But as long as people are willing to compromise, then things like this become more of a possibility. Second bullet point here, long-term commitment necessary. Yeah, of course, we're going to be buying a home together. This is going to tie people in, tie and lock money up, lock people together for a while. Of course, there are things that can be done if people eventually decided to go their own separate ways. But going into it, I think people need to have an understanding that this is a long-term commitment, and there will be a little bit of a hassle if we did want to break this commitment. Okay. In the last bullet point, I just say this is a high-level overview. Detailed discussions are necessary. Yeah, there are many conversations that need to be had. Some of them have been alluded to in this presentation, but many more detailed conversations need to be had in order to see whether or not this is something feasible. Okay, that's all.